everybody knows that we need to do better for people in service professions, whether we're talking about the military or first responders, emergency medicine, service-oriented professionals will put others first. That's the default psychology. And we need you to put others first. Like I want the firefighters that come to my house when it's on fire to put me first and help me and my family get out safely. Like we need that. But I also need the people who show up to be mentally sharp and focused and physically fit.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Overhaul podcast, where we expose the problems and provide the solutions. No fluff, just raw conversations to sharpen the fire service and the people in it. Today, I have a special gift for you. This is actually the first guest that is not technically a firefighter, but works a lot with first responders and then some. So why am I doing this? Or why is this guest coming on today? Well, in the fire service, we know the importance of checking our rigs every morning. But how often do we check on ourselves? My guest's work is all about building a personal dashboard to catch the warning signs before we break down. Today, we're going to talk about what that means for firefighters, first responders, and anyone who wants to stay in the fight for the long haul. My guest is Rob Wilson, a performance educator who spent the last 2 decades training some of the toughest people on the planet, from Navy SEALs to UFC fighters, elite athletes, and first responders. He's got a new book out called Check Engine Light, Tuning Your Body and Mind to Achieve Performance Longevity, which we are going to go over some of that today to provide you all listeners some takeaways and help you increase your performance in daily life. So without further ado, Rob Wilson, sir, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for letting me have you. Thanks for having me on. There we go. Man.
Well, what's funny is we were talking
as low as it gets.
Yeah, what's funny is we were talking about how you've been on a few podcasts, and if you got some of the reps out of the way, and your speaking performance usually is a lot better. But we're starting.
And then I blow it in the first sentence.
I should insert the you blew it Billy Madison scene right there.
Perfect.
You blew it!
Oh, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you spending some time with me. I imagine you're a pretty busy individual with the work that you do. But other than what I've covered, is there anything that you want to add or provide context for the listeners?
No, I mean, my work has been pretty broad and varied. I come from a pain relief and like return to play or return to duty background and strength and conditioning. The last few years, I've worked quite a bit with naval special warfare and then some other special operations communities, mostly through nonprofits, but also through direct contracting. And then I've also done work with some law enforcement agencies and some fire service agencies as well, kind of talking about some of the broad sweeping problems that are occurring in tactical communities in general. And then, of course, there's some variance depending on the exact environment, but there are some commonalities across all of those cultures that my approach to human performance seems to have resonated with.
Yeah, I imagine that has developed over time, right? I've heard you talk about delivery with those unique communities, right? With the Navy SEALs, like your delivery has to be pretty spot on. Otherwise they'll call you out rather quickly, right?
Yeah. And I mean, with the thing about any adult person, especially if you're talking about somebody who has a high specialty skill, you don't want to hear from somebody who's going to talk to you about something that you feel is irrelevant to you, right? Like nobody wants to sit while some dude just spews hot air or self-aggrandizes or explains to you that water is wet. Like if you're a busy working person, but especially if you're in, whether it's special operations or the fire service, those are very unique jobs. And if you haven't done the job, then you really don't, no matter how empathetic you are, you really don't understand what it takes to do the job and the experience of those individuals. And so I think what you have to do is, if you're an educator, you have to start from these people are already solving these problems to some degree. You have to acknowledge what they're good at and what they care about and make it meaningful and relevant as quickly as possible. And that seems to be true across the board. Special operations is a little bit unique in that the individuals who are attracted to that profession tend to be pretty direct, pretty clear about their feedback. It's not common that like people will be overtly rude, but they just will like check out, they'll leave, they won't attend. It'll just, whatever you're sharing will just fall to the fray. You won't last. And so that's a little bit unique. It's not like, well, admin says you're going to listen to this guy. They're like, nope. And they just won't come. But regardless, I try to make it as meaningful and relevant as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I'd say that's not too different from the fire service. You know, we tend to only want to go out of service to train. You know, one of the hardest things to get done is doing extensive long trainings, pulling hose, throwing ladders, climbing stairwells when you're still in service. So it's one of those things where if I'm going to pull all the hose off the rig and pull all the ladders off the rig, I want to be unavailable so that way I can get quality training in. And then if we have to go out of service for anything else, especially like if we don't know who you are and they bring you in, we're like, oh, they're going to bring in some breathing guru in here to tell me how to do sun salutations in the kitchen. I don't want to go out of service for that, you know? And so, yeah, I think in the fire service community, we still also have a little bit of pushback with that. I'd like to think it's changing a little bit on the fact that, you know, wellness is being talked about in a more open environment. It's not just like this yogi mindset. It's more about, like we're talking about, like performance longevity. Like, let me give you solutions on why you need to know this so that you can perform better on the job.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the burden of that is really on the educator, right? So the burden of bridging that gap is on the person that's providing it. It's not to you guys, right? So for me, if I was going to go into your department and share, let's say, whatever, I knew someone who was best friends with the chief, and the chief's like, we're bringing this guy in, and I know I'm going to walk in the door and everyone's going to be like, who the fuck is this dude? Then I know I would be thinking the same thing. So I just call out the elephant in the room, you know, right away. Hey, I don't know about firefighting. I'm not here to tell you guys how to be firefighters. I don't have your skill set, but what I do have is experience with X, Y, and Z. I understand how to maintain the body. I understand how to generate conditions for performance longevity. I just want you to be able to do what you do better for longer. And when you're done, for there to be something left in the tank for your family. That is what I know about. Do I know how to best prepare to go into, you know, a 10-story building and put out the fire? No, I don't know shit about that. And I'm not going to act like I do know. And I'm not going to put up a slideshow that shows fires because I don't know shit about that. I'm only going to talk about what I know about. And then it's up to you guys to find how it works for you. So I don't come in like I've got all the solutions for everybody because I don't live that. But what I can do is come in with a framework that helps you more successfully pursue solutions for you and for your community, and have a more adaptable mindset when it comes to how do you solve health and performance problems that are going to occur, and what makes them common, not just to all people in tactical professions, but what makes them common to people, because ultimately you're human beings doing a job, right?
Right. No, I think that gains you a lot of credibility right out of the gate coming into the room, is trying not to be like everybody that's listening to you. You just be who you are and do your thing.
Don't bring bullshit. Just talk about what you know about and let people make their mind up. And that usually works, you know. It's like some people are like, well, I don't think that'll really work for me. And it's like, well, okay, I don't know you, so you're probably right.
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. Let's talk about, I mean,
Yeah.
let's just start off with the title of the book, right? The check engine light. How did you come up with that? Well, the title and then the dashboard concept.
I mean, the title, the check engine light, came from me actually talking to operators about self-care. Right. So when I'm talking to guys who were at the time active duty, the idea of self-care to that community is like, it's the opposite of what they think is necessary, right? It's more about, what does the job require? What does the team need? I don't have time to be looking at what my own needs are. There's other things that need to be done. And so I would just use the analogy of the check engine, like, hey, just learning how to pay attention to signals from your body is like a check engine light on your car. It doesn't mean you have to immediately stop everything you're doing and park it in the garage, never to be seen again. What it means is like, hey, there's something over here that might need my attention, and I should keep my eyes peeled. It just tells me, look over here. That's all a check engine light is. It's a signal for further investigation. It doesn't mean all systems full stop and you can't do anything. You can drive a car with a check engine light on, and you can drive it fast and hard. The question is, for how long and what does it cost? And so the check engine light analogy gives some flexibility to the idea of taking care of myself. Because there are some times when it's appropriate to ignore a check engine light. But if you always do it, your stuff will break more easily and it will perform worse. Everybody knows this. Just like you said at the top of the hour, it's like, you guys do rig checks, right? You do systems checks before every shift, because you don't want to be in the middle of a fire and go, oh, whoops, this tool we need doesn't work. That's a horrible time for things to not work. You check before. So what's the system that you have in place? So that's the idea of the check engine light. And the dashboard idea is just basically that there's no one indicator to rule them all. They need a panel. You need multiple indicators that all sort of self-reinforce and say, hey, here's the general direction of the system. We're kind of headed this way. If it's just like, my oil light's been on for a day, does that mean all full stop? No, but if it's like your oil light and your brake light, your ABS brake light and your check engine light is on and your tack is snapping back and forth, okay, well, you might need to put the thing in the garage and see what's going on, right? Further diagnostics are necessary. So that's really like the basic idea.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where the mindset for firefighters is we don't need help. We are the people that help others. And so we just wait for that light to go off by itself, because I need to always be available. I can't take myself offline to deal with myself. Same thing what you're talking about with the operators, right? If I take myself out of the game, I'm letting my guys down. So I'm just that nagging pain in my knee or my back, it's going to go away eventually, I hope, and then keep pushing through. But then that mishap happens, right?
I mean, that's like ignoring levels on your tank because you got other shit that you're worried about something else. Like ignoring essential pieces of gear and how they're performing. It's like the most essential piece of gear is you. You are the most essential piece of gear. Even if you think about it in terms of serving your teammates, serving the public, if you're not functioning at your best on a given day, then everything else that falls after that is going to be worse. Right. So this is like a point I make over and over again, and everybody knows this is true. It's like when I say it out loud, it's like, it's so obvious. Like, of course you have to take care of equipment. Of course I have to take care of myself, but my knee will stop hurting. And the thing is that stuff will happen. Oftentimes pain will self-alleviate until it doesn't anymore, until it just doesn't, until you're burnt out, until you're, 37 years old and you have a heart attack at your family barbecue, or you suddenly realize that you drink 12 cups of coffee a day and you're angry all the time, or until your marriage is falling apart, or until your stuff hurts so much that you have to leave the job early.
Yeah.
Right? Or until you have multiple injuries that you're hiding from yourself and others that could put you at risk. And this is what happens, right? These compensatory mechanisms build up. And this is because, biologically, first of all, we're made like this, right? Human beings are made to focus our attention outward into the world. What are the problems out there? What are the opportunities out there? What's the next thing I need to be doing? That's just part of our basic biological makeup, is to focus most attention out. On top of that, higher performing individuals are especially good at task focus. What's the next thing that needs to be done? I got to make my next goal really small. I got to get here. I got to do that thing. I got to pick the kids up from school. I don't have time for physical therapy. Oh, I got to get back to work. No, I got to get to my guys. I got to get to the next promotion. I got to talk to the chief. I got to talk to the captain. I got to do the next thing. I got to do the next thing. And this is, on one hand, high performing individuals do this. This is also how we shield ourselves from internal challenges. I just don't want to deal with that, because once I look, it's like if you're going broke, you don't want to look at your bank account. You're like, oh, I know there's no money in there. I don't want the mental duress of it. And again, it's okay to ignore under some conditions, but if you never look at those things, they just aggregate worse and worse and worse over time until there's some kind of catastrophic failure in the system, or performance declines so far that you can no longer do the job in the way that you want to. Right. And here's the thing is, like, the strategies that you deploy to prevent that from happening, or the strategies that you deploy to move towards what I call performance longevity, they don't have to be complicated. In fact, they shouldn't be. They should be really simple. And really what happens over time is you use these things, they layer over top of each other. I think often what happens is, whether it's special operations or executives or fire service, the failure of the educator side or the provider side is, we expect this gigantic paradigm shift from the user, rather than going, what's the simplest leverage point that's actually accessible to this group of people or this individual so they can start. Right? So sometimes we throw away the good in pursuit of the perfect, and that's very discouraging, So there's those sort of individual blockades, but there's also administrative things, so there are simple strategies to help overcome most, if not all, of that.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a few guys I've met in the fire service that, they don't want to be a part of the annual physical or the blood panel because they don't want to actually see what they already know. Right. And then they're, like, speaking of admin, like, they're afraid of like potentially not being able to perform or getting taken offline because their blood panel shows that they have there's something way off that they need to get taken offline. So I've actually heard a guy say, that's my personal business. I don't need the organization to know about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. And I'll say this is, like, I know about similar things happening in administrations and other tactical professions. And I think using that as a negative reinforcement tool is a really poor use of that information, to sort of threaten firefighters with, like, even if it's unintentional, like, oh, if your blood markers say this, we're going to pull you away from all of your social support and your teammates and the thing that gives meaning to your life. We're going to yank that out from underneath you because your cortisol is too high, is really short-sighted. I think a much better way to help with that relationship is for firefighters or whomever to use it as a teaching tool. Like, hey, this is getting high. If it stays high, this is the long-term outcome, whether that's an administrative outcome or a health outcome. Here's some realistic strategies to help you start moving the needle in the right direction. We're going to check this again in 6 months. If you haven't been deploying these strategies, then we got to have another conversation, right? But I think I'm always for, like, put the responsibility for it in the individual. But if it was me and I felt like my place was threatened, right? It's not just, it's your meaning, it's your teammates, but it's also your livelihood, right? That kind of thing can affect promotion scales, right? And you're like, okay, well, I got 2 kids and one of them, one of them has special needs and I need extra money coming in. And so I'm waiting for this schedule of promotion so that I can improve my family's life. If it was me, I might do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't pass judgment on those kind of decisions. However, what you are doing is delaying cost. So it doesn't mean because you don't look at your health that it's just, oh, well, it just doesn't count. That's like thinking that your finances organize themselves if you don't look at your bank account. That's silly. So on one hand, I think administrations need to be careful how they utilize that information, right? Sometimes it becomes like this cover your ass thing. Well, we don't want our firefighters to look like they're super stressed out. And it's like, you do understand that the job is to see like horribly injured, dead and dying people and to run into places that are on fire. Like that's pretty stressful. So you're going to have blood panels that look like people are stressed because the job is stressful. That's not the question. The question is, can we do things that help mitigate the knowns? So if you have disrupted sleep and you have a stressful job and you have less time to exercise in the way that you want to, how can you create an environment where firefighters are more likely to engage in the health behavior that helps prevent those downturns? And that's sort of the administration's job. And then I think the individual has to come from the other direction, which is, boy, if I'm not looking at what's going on underneath the hood, I'm just waiting for the engine to blow up. And the thing about biology is nobody knows when it's going to happen. And if I remember this story correctly, I was working at a leadership summit in New York with FDNY, and they were talking about how recently a firefighter who was in his mid-30s died holding a hose on a call. So it went from a fire call to a medical call in half a second because this dude had myocardial infarct right there. And so it's like, nobody knows when the debt collector comes to knock if you're not looking at the bank account, right? So that's the basic idea. And being in touch with your biomarkers, that stuff is important, whether you're doing it through the department or you're getting it looked at on your own. If we're just talking about for your health, you should know.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I know we're talking about the very final moment where we've missed all the lights and the engine's about to blow up. But let me rewind a little bit. Let's talk about the newer generation, because honestly the fire service is getting younger. In my department, it's over 40% that have less than 5 years online. So
Woo.
yeah.
Got some green kids in there, huh?
Yeah. And unfortunately fires are down, right? So they don't know what they don't know. Like the experience level is down, but they're still healthy. They're impressionable. They want to be good at their jobs. So let's talk about that individual. Their sleep is starting to fall off, right? Because of shift work. In the firehouse, maybe the foods are different because the community loves to bring cakes and ice cream and all this other stuff. What are some of the initial check engine lights you're seeing in the first responder community that we need to be aware of, and how do we address those early on?
Well, I think the first thing is there is some robustness that comes with youth. That's why young, usually men, but obviously women do, but that's why young people pick those jobs, right? You can handle it. So you have someone who's young and they're pretty fit and they're sharp mentally and they behave well under stress. It feels like you're Superman, and you probably won't feel the effects. Like the lights probably won't come on for you as quickly just because you don't have as much history. Right? Now, when you're young, what you want to do is set it up so that you have the habit of paying attention, not so that you can sort of like become anxious about every change in your markers, but just learning the habit of attending to what is even going on in the first place is probably the most important point for young people. And then setting up other basic habits that mitigate all stress, like exercise. Like, even if your sleep is not great because you have a lot of sleep disruption because of the nature of the job, and there's some cakes and shit like that coming in the firehouse and hot dogs, and what are you eating, steaks because there's a grill and all that kind of stuff. Is that ideal? It's not. One of the best things you can do is be exercising on a regular basis. And you don't have to be a zealot about it, but we know that it protects against almost every type of stress that we can think of. So regular exercise is really important. And the other thing is, when you're exercising over time, if it's a regular part of your life, you get in tune with how your body responds as you change. So when you're 25, whatever, let's say you like lifting weights, maybe you're like, oh, I haven't slept more than 8 hours in the last 3 days, and I feel nothing. I feel like Iron Man. I could bench max after 3 days of only 8 hours of sleep total. A couple of years goes by and you're like, man, my bench is going down even though I'm lifting weights. Maybe I need to change something about how I'm training. I'm responding to stress a little bit differently. So exercise also becomes a monitoring system, right? So it's just a way to not only like build strength and cardiovascular health, endurance, all the stuff we normally think about in terms of exercise, but it becomes a way for us to tune into how the system is responding to stress in total. You don't have to have technology for that. You can go, man, I used to be able to like come off of a shift and go straight to the gym and crank it out like I'm a CrossFit Games winner. And now I just want to go to bed. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't mean don't exercise, but it means maybe I have to do this different. My body has changed because of now I have history, right? And so those things matter. So to kind of sum all that up, right? For young people, you don't have to fret about every little thing, but you should have some system in place, and it's easier to let it slip because you just don't have as much mileage. All right. Is that a helpful answer?
It is. And it leads to my next question when it talks about exercise, especially in the fire service, right? We have to have a balance of strength, agility, cardiovascular endurance because of the amount of gear we go on, the stress we endure ourselves in high heat conditions, and just potentially dragging a victim out of a building or just picking somebody up off the floor on an EMS call. Is there a healthy balance with the routines that we're supposed to be doing? Because I know it's easy for us to get under a bench and a squat rack every single day. But for our community, the firefighter community, with your expertise, like what should that routine, the balance look like?
Well, okay. So first of all, I'll tell you what my bugaboo is in all of strength and conditioning, and that is trying to precisely replicate the demands of the event or the job in the strength and conditioning environment. So it's not necessary to put on all your gear and an O2 tank and a sledgehammer and do pull-ups and shit with all that stuff on, because it simulates the environment, because it doesn't, because there's no fire and there's no real danger and you don't have to make any decisions. So it doesn't replicate it. What you do need to do is have some exercise program that develops the physical and physiological qualities that are necessary to do the job. That shakes out in lots of different ways for lots of different people. Now, I'm sure there's some standards that you guys have. Every department has their own standards that say, hey, if you can do this, then you can do the job. These days, those standards are getting decidedly lower, right? But one thing, so I'm going to like zoom out a little bit. Everything is not for everybody. So not every guy in the firehouse, not every guy and gal in the firehouse has to work out exactly the same. in order to get good outcomes that make you good at the job. Some guys have a history like, oh man, I grew up playing football and I like deadlifting heavy and I like doing weighted pull-ups, and but they can't run a mile. How much you got to run a mile, right? They got a decent aerobic reserve. Maybe that's the dude that you keep him in the back of the line until it's time to break through a big ass door, right? So everybody has their place on the team, and he or she is gonna do what they like. What I think is firstly most important is everybody's doing something, right? So whatever that is, however that looks for you, know that temperament, like your personality, is going to change your taste and what you like. With that said, I think that having sort of mid-range for strength, like you need to be a powerlifting world champion, you don't, right? Know what the pluses and minuses are, not just for like strength training and getting sore, but like how much does that cost on your nervous system, right? Doing 5x5 deadlifts will make you strong, but it'll cook your nervous system too. So if you're a 45-year-old firefighter, that might affect you differently than if you're a 25-year-old firefighter. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you should have, for me at least at this point in my life and what my own biases are, I think cardiovascular fitness is really essential, not just for the endurance capacity, but for recovery. I think that it's a prophylactic against stress and the effects of stress on the heart and the pulmonary system, right? And then having some reasonable strength. So like your heaviest teammate, could you pick up or drag that person out of danger? I think that's those are good markers, right? Am I cardiovascularly fit, or am I draining tanks every time I'm on a call? And can I lift or drag my heaviest teammate out of danger and remain somewhat conversational? And I think that's a pretty good marker, especially with, I like the conversational idea of being able to do hard work and be conversational for people who have to communicate on radios under duress, right? So that's just a very broad brush thought that I developed as you asked the question, right? Because there's a lot of nuance to a question like that. So for me, like if I got hired as a strength coach for a fire department, the first thing I would do is a needs analysis. Like let's look at, okay, what are the real demands of the job on average for this department? Because it's going to be, I live in Virginia Beach, right? We don't get forest fires here,
Right?
It's mostly medical calls. Our fire service is very much a medical service in Virginia Beach. If you're in Colorado, this would be a little different, right? If you live in California, it's going to be a little different. So you have to know, okay, for this department, what are their needs? What kind of challenges are you guys facing? And then build a program accordingly. I don't know how helpful an answer that is, but it's the one I've got.
I think it's extremely helpful because I track the line of duty deaths that come out. They get reports for every line of duty death, and a majority of the time it's cardiovascular. And they'll count. I think the track is if they had a cardiovascular event within 24 hours of a job, of like fighting a fire or something like that, and they're relating it to overexertion, cardiovascular, myocardial infarct, all these things. And that's the majority of the deaths in the fire service right now. But like I played football. I was in the Navy for 10 years, and all I did was chew on iron, right? That's all I wanted to do, and develop my beach muscles because I'm also a California boy. So cardiovascular wasn't really a thing. And you talked about it already. When you're young, you don't think about breath work. You don't think about the cardiovascular endurance because you're young enough to just push through to where it doesn't affect you all that much. But then when you're 40, it's like, man, it's the stress of this load of the SCBA tank on my back and having to push through this dark hallway. My anxiety and my breathing is pretty chaotic right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, we're going to ask a question.
No, I was just giving you my perspective on the statement
Yeah.
you made about the cardiovascular or the type of fitness that we should be going through or enduring right now.
I mean, here's the thing is like, okay, so let's take medical off the table. We'll talk about being on SCBA, right? So you got an oxygen tank. There's no available oxygen in the environment. Everything you have to breathe, you're carrying on your body. It's hot as fuck, obviously, right? So that just temperature alone increases cardiovascular stress. So your metabolic rate is going up. The amount of energy you're using is going up. So respiratory rate, heart rate, all that is going to increase as a result. And that means if you're not fit, you're going to be drawing more frequent and deeper breaths, which means you're going to pull more oxygen from those tanks. So that reduces time on bottle. Period. I don't need to know shit about firefighting to know that if you're less fit, you breathe more frequently at a lower rate of exertion. And if you don't have access to oxygen in the environment and you have a finite amount of O2, you'll use it up faster. Simple as that. If you're more fit, then your body is more effective at using energy. That's what fitness means. Fitness means I use energy more effectively. If you're aerobically fit, you use oxygen more effectively. You will generally have a lower breath rate. That's the easiest way to sort of crack that nut, right? So I'm going to use less oxygen. Now I can do breath control things that will sort of help me hack the system, but no amazing breath control is better than being fit. Like if somebody was like, Rob, I only have time to either do cardio or breath control, and I'm somebody who relies on closed oxygen systems to live in very dangerous environments, I'd be like, to hell with breath work, walk with a pack. So ruck a couple days a week, or ride a stationary bike a couple days a week, or go for a run a couple days a week with your heart rate in a zone where you're sort of moderately conversational. And then when you exhaust that, use breathing. But first, you need a big enough bucket, right? You need a big enough tank to do the work, right? I would never say replace breath control with fitness. It's a bad trade. But breath control can help you stretch your fitness out longer under conditions of stress, and can help you develop your fitness more effectively. No question about that. But basic cardiovascular fitness is important. And not only is it easier to lose as we age, the aerobic system for human beings is how efficiently we pull oxygen from the air, right? So we have our pulmonary system, get it into our bloodstream, and then push it to the periphery, right? So if you have vascular resistance because you eat like a 7-year-old, even though you're 40, then that's still a cardio system that has to work as cardiovascular, right? So that means your heart has to work harder to push oxygen to the periphery to do work. That's not good if you're an office worker, but it's definitely not good if you're somebody who frequently and unexpectedly, under conditions of high stress, high focus, high uncertainty, on little rest, goes into very dangerous situations. Now, what will happen is if you are experienced and you know how to turn it on, a lot of times adrenaline will push you through the threshold of being sort of like having a successful performance in the moment. But then on the back end, this is when I talk about the debt collector. You finish the call, you go home. That's when you have the event, right? So basically you have exhausted the ability of the cardiac system to effectively deal with the total stress load on the system. And this is especially true for men. right? Our hearts tend to take the vast majority of the stress that both psychological stress and physiological stress. So it's something that we have to be conscious of. And again, the easiest prophylactic to that is cardiovascular fitness. And it doesn't mean you have to become a runner, right? But if your firehouse has a treadmill, right, you can start just by, if you're overweight and you're a firefighter, you could just get your ass on the treadmill and walk at a pace where it's just slightly hard for you to talk to a person in the room, and do it for 15 or 20 minutes a couple days a week, and then do it at an incline, and then do it in an incline with some weight and build that up over time. It doesn't have to be some all-time consuming. You don't need to be David Goggins and run, an ultra marathon a month or anything silly like that. And you can track simple things. What's your resting heart rate? If your resting heart rate isn't sub 50 at least, and you're a professional firefighter who's still going into fires on a regular basis, you're not an administrator, then you better be changing that, right? If your heart rate recovery, so after you do hard work, if it takes a long time for your heart rate to return to its original sort of resting point, like sub 100 beats a minute, if you walk up the stairs in the firehouse and it takes you 5 minutes before your heart rate feels normal, that's no bueno. You got to get that under control.
Those are those check engine lights we're talking about, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Those things are normal, in strength and conditioning or fitness professions. Those are things that we learn about. That's one of the reasons I wanted to create the course and then the book, is because fitness professionals or strength and conditioning performance professionals, those kind of monitoring systems are tacit to our knowledge. We learn how to monitor the human body and its response to stress so that we'll know if it's going to adapt properly to the training program that we give it. That's part of what strength and conditioning training is. If you're in the fire service, you have monitoring systems for all your gear, and they're normal, right? If you gave me a piece of equipment that you guys use every day, I wouldn't know the first thing about how to maintain it. And in 2 months, you'd be like, Jesus, Rob, like, when was the last time, like, you pulled the cord on this thing? Like, if you run this for 2 minutes, like, it sounds like shit. The blade's rusty. Like, you'd look at me like I was an idiot, right? You'd be like, man, what if you really need this? Like, what if you need this in emergency? Like, I do, a couple times a year, I do like stop the bleed training, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, boy, you realize like most people don't know how to use a tourniquet. That's something that you feel like you need until somebody that you love is bleeding to death. And then you go, oh shit, I wish I had learned how to do this, or how to do basic CPR. How many lives does CPR save?
Tons.
And it's not hard to learn at all. It's like the easiest thing in the world to learn how to do chest compressions, but a lot of people don't know how to do it. But if you're a first responder and somebody tells you they don't know CPR, you're a firefighter, you tell a firefighter you don't know CPR, they're like, what the fuck? I don't have a fire extinguisher in my house. You don't have a fire blanket or a fire extinguisher in your kitchen? Like, what? And it's because it's obvious to you because you have experience there, right? So there are some things that are tacit to our training that we just don't know. And so what I want to do is to take that same kind of idea and go, hey, these monitoring systems for your performance and your health, they're really not that hard. You just weren't trained to do them. You come into the fire service, you go through the academy, you learn about fire science and how to extinguish fires, and you get medical training, and you have systems for all of this stuff, but you don't have a system for self-care that fits into the environment that you work in. And so that's what I'm trying to provide, is that people who work in really complex, unpredictable environments, like, what's a system that's reasonable? Right. So anyway, I went off on a tangent for a bit.
You're actually starting to make sense on another level for me. Obviously, I have the book, which you sent me. Thank you. Signed it. I'm very, very honored to have that. But one thing we're trained on, especially with medicine and on the fire ground, is we're very, very driven under protocols and standard operating procedures. Like you talked about that 10-story building. We call that our high-rise SOP. We already know what the first 4 apparatus are going to do when they arrive on scene. when that we're presented with that situation. When we're presented with a cardiac event, I know that I need a guy on airway, I need a guy on chest compressions, I need a guy on a monitor, I need a guy to push medication. Boom, 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 boom. But like we're talking about, like when I raise my arms above my head and my left arm doesn't get as high as in my right arm, I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is, but whatever. So, it's man,
Yeah.
you're making a lot of sense right now, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And here's what happens a lot is put value judgments when, for example, whether, we'll stay with the example of for the fire service. Oh man, these guys don't even know that their shoulders work. So I have talked to some strength coaches who work with fire service or law enforcement. And it's like, these guys don't even know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, how are they supposed to? This isn't part of their training. It's your job to give that to them, right? So that's now what's happening more is, and this is what usually happens, is people who are boots on the ground notice that there's a problem and start to seek out people like me to help instigate some sort of solution, right? So it's like, boy, everybody's shoulders are messed up, everybody's necks are messed up, or man, guys are having a lot of heart attacks and we're not sure exactly why or what we can do. And so then what do? We update the systems. That's what happens. We hit some critical mass of failure, unfortunately, and then we can't act retro. We can't retroact, but we can go forward, right? We can go, okay, well now, from now on, what's the new system? Like, that's why things like CPR exist. That's why we have CAT tourniquets, because other tourniquet types have failed so many times that we go, hey, this doesn't work. Like, under stress, and if your hands are wet and bloody and you're scared to death, or you're trying to put a tourniquet on this guy and make it fast, and there's somebody else who's hurt and you got to triage, like, these things go on quick, right? So that came because enough people had experience where they're like, we got to change this. So this is normal. So now everybody knows that we need to do better for people in service professions, whether we're talking about the military or first responders, emergency medicine, that service-oriented professionals will put others first. That's the default psychology. And we need you to put others first. Like, I want the firefighters that come to my house when it's on fire to put me first and help me and my family get out safely. Like, we need that. But I also need the people who show up to be like mentally sharp and focused and physically fit. I mean, I weigh like 235. I don't need you to throw me over your shoulder like a damsel in distress, but man, I feel really good if I drive by the fire academy, which is down the street from my house, and the guys I see running out front look fit and like they could drag me out. I'm like, okay, well, now I don't have to take care of them when they show up, at least. Right. So anyway, again, I went off on a bit of a tangent, but the idea being, this check engine light idea in this book or this curriculum isn't about like, I would come into your fire service and tell you guys how you all need to exercise. It would be, you should be paying attention to some very basic things. Here are some simple ways to pay attention to it. Then, when you're paying attention better, you can describe to me what the problems are more effectively, and we can actually arrive at good conclusions, right? So it just becomes a new protocol, a new system that gets put in place. Does it mean you have to dictate how every firefighter in your whole department exercises? No, can't do that even if you wanted to, right? But what you can do is say, here is the menu of options. This is the standard, how things should work. And then here's the options that you have to meet that standard. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I'll break it down from the way I'm seeing it, because I'm a paramedic, right? If we get dispatched to abdominal pain, the first thing I want to know from my patient is like, what type of abdominal pain is it? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Does it radiate? Is it in the lower right? Is it in the upper left? eating anything greasy? Do you have an appendix? Is your gallbladder still there? Are you on any kind of special diet? Right? If instead of me asking these 100 questions to figure out what exactly is going wrong, and you can tell me, well, I ate a greasy cheeseburger last night. I was on the keto diet. I've been told my gallbladder is this. I mean, my pain is in the upper right quadrant. It hurts when I push on this. And I'm like, boom, 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 boom. Now I know how to treat you faster and easier. That's kind of what you're getting at,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. So, when I teach check engine light, we have this dashboard that you mentioned earlier, and we talk about the functions that the indicators on this dashboard should serve. And the very first one is bring clarity to problems and identify targets or identify outcomes. And when you work with a domain expert, whether it's the fire service works with a human performance expert, or you show up as a paramedic to my house, a big part of what you're doing as a domain expert is clarifying the problem first. Oh, I know exactly what the issue is, or with a higher degree of certainty. And so now we can actually move forward. And over time, if you learn how to do that for yourself, then when you work with any domain expert, you can more clearly explain what your needs are. Right. And this is actually happening. I mean, I've worked with plenty of departments where health and fitness and wellness is becoming more and more of a priority. So 10 years ago, if I had a conversation, it would just be kind of like, nobody's happy, people drink too much, guys are dying early, we don't know. Now it's like, people are checking HRV, we know our sleep, we know we have a sleep problem. There's a little bit more refined of a lens that's going on to it. So it's easier to start helping develop systems and protocols, but still ultimately it's going to have to come from firefighters to firefighters, because no matter what my level of expertise is, I never lived in a firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I never had to get up at 2:15 when the alarm goes off when I just went to bed at 1:40. So the feeling of that and what's really available, that's going to have to come from the grassroots, just like other things, the tools that you guys use, right? It's not like some manufacturer came down from on high and invented the hoolie, right? You're like, oh shit, we got to get indoors faster.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the thing. It has to come from the community, and firefighters need a framework. People need a framework to go, how do I figure out what it is that I even, and so that's what I try to help do is, like you just said, help ask the right questions so that you can develop a protocol or a system that works.
Are you seeing in the first responder community like some common issues, those indicators like that people are talking to you about, some common things nationwide?
Yes, sleep dysfunction is number one, no question about it. And some of this too, I think, is one of the things that I think is contextually important is we have a pretty unhealthy culture in general. And so our first responders are coming out of a culture that is not very health focused. Mm-hmm. And so the normal or the standard problems that we have in the culture are exacerbated by a very demanding work environment. It's not like people just started fighting fires, right? We've been doing things like bucket brigades for a really long time, right? The problem is there's very little time for an off switch. The demands are higher, things happen faster, right? There's more ways for things to go wrong. There's more buildings, they're closer together. The things they're made out of are different, right? So the demands have gone up with less time for reset. And sleep dysregulation is part of the job often now, especially in cities, because call volume is high.
Yep.
During COVID, that was especially the case because there was I think the nationwide statistic that I remember learning was a 30% increase. That's the nationwide average in increase in call volume, depending on how your state organizes call structure. Like some places like New York have like a no leave policy. So if you show up and somebody like cut their hand and you're a firefighter, you can't be like, you need to, here's a bandage, go to the hospital. No, you got to stay. You got to take them. So what does that do? That increases call volume. So you might have to stay with that person longer. You barely get a break at the firehouse. You're back on another one in a busy urban area, right? Or if you're in the mountains and it's fire season and you have people who are even just like camping irresponsibly, then frequency goes up. And so now we have a sleep dysregulation pattern. And it's not like some evil puppeteer who's trying to sabotage first responders. It's just the nature of the environment and understanding that that's the job you chose. And that, when it comes to sleep, I always try to acknowledge something up front, which is that I'll never say you can't perform well on no sleep, because it's just not true. You can perform really well on no sleep. And anybody who's listening to this, right, that's a firefighter knows you can have no sleep and like, boy, you hit another gear and you're like, I'm as clear as a bell. I'm as clear as I've ever been in this moment, because you have to be. That's the robustness of high performing humans. It's not free though. That's the thing to realize, is performing like that's not free, and the cost aggregate over time. So if you're 20, you're in the fire service, you haven't spent that much money yet. But maybe by the time you're 32, you spent a lot of money. And if you're 32 and you've been in the fire service 10 years, well, not only have you had the normal demands of the job, which are hard, but you've also had eaten 5,000 hot dogs and 2,000 Little Debbie cakes, and you haven't exercised that much in 5 years because I know how to do the job. And when you go home, your sleep habits are fucked up. So you sleep the same dumb way when you go home. So you don't ever really get fully rested, right? And then maybe you have family stuff that comes up, because family stuff comes up. Even if nothing goes wrong, that's just family. Kids get sick, spouses get sick, times get stressful, money gets tight, shit happens. So if you know all those things are true, then what you have to do is give yourself every advantage, not every disadvantage, where you stay up looking at your phone and you have other inputs that are preventing you from adapting properly to the known and unknown stresses that are certainly coming. And so even when everything's great, disrupted sleeping is a problem. We know that chronic circadian disruption is basically a carcinogen, right? It increases all-cause mortality significantly. But, if you're a smoker and you eat like shit and you don't exercise, then you can't mitigate those negative effects. But you could mitigate some of those negative effects by maintaining a healthy cardiovascular system. And again, it doesn't mean you need Tour de France lungs. It means you better be getting some like zone 2 a couple days a week, and you better work hard to whatever the limit is for that day, a couple days a week. And you have to have some organized strategy that you do it. And maybe you can mitigate some of the negative effects. And then when you get some time off and you're like, oh, I just need a vacation, and you get a week of leave, don't spend the whole week getting shit-faced drunk and eating like an idiot and actually preventing reset of the system. Now, I'm not saying I'm not like a monk or anything, but if you go on vacation and you're coming away from a year of a lot of stress on body and mind, and then you don't take that time to reset or rest, and you actually put poison into the system, that's dumb. And you have to match your expectations to the outcome. So it's like, well, I don't care. Then in 2 more years, when the department looks at your blood work and it looks like shit, and you haven't been exercising and you eat like shit and you can't pass the fitness test, it's your fault.
I can't believe you just brought that full circle back to the blood work. No, dude, bro, you are making so much sense, man, because A lot of the fire service culture is, well, we don't sleep, so I'm just going to fill my body with Zins and caffeine and energy drinks, and then I'm on testosterone replacement therapy at 30 years old because my body is just a train wreck. And then you continue down that path until you actually are
Yeah.
a legitimate train wreck.
Yeah. And I know there's going to be like some, especially dudes, because women tend to catch on a little bit faster. Right. But especially dudes who are going to listen to this and they're going to get the case of the yeah buts when they listen. Yeah, but we don't really have that much time in my department because we're always doing really cool hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I only have, an hour a day. So it's not even worth it to rest. And what I'm telling you is it damn sure is that getting an hour of rest into the system is better than zero. It's not better in a day.
Mm-hmm.
But it is better in 5 years because an hour more a week over 5 years what is that? 270 hours. So we have to think in the aggregate. A lot of the problem is humans in general are really bad at thinking about long-term consequences. We think like, well, I got an hour more yesterday and I didn't get the hour today. Who cares? I feel the same. It doesn't matter. It matters in years. It won't matter in days. It'll matter in years. Now, with that said, again, if it was me, I might be a Zen guy. I can easily be that person. I'm not saying any of this in judgment. I'm saying it as a professional person in performance who's gotten most of it wrong at some point. So I have done the too much caffeine thing. I've done the too much nicotine thing. I've done the not getting enough sleep thing and just I'm going to grind through it and be a tough guy. And you can do it for a while until you can't. And then all of a sudden you're like, why is my blood pressure so high? Like I'm only this, whatever, fill in the blank age and my blood pressure's high. And you go, whatever. I'll just get some, I'll just start popping some beetroot juice or whatever, whatever little hack is on the Huberman Lab podcast. That's or right. Whatever, right? That guys want to use instead of damn, you know what? When I go home for, would you say 96? You get 96 off?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll take a day to get back in the rhythm. But it's like, what's the small incremental advantage I can give myself? It's like, I get it. You go home because I don't get it because I lived it. I get it because I talk to people. You go home. It's like, now your wife has expectations. Your kids got expectations. They're like, Dad, you're home. Can you take us to the baseball game? Your wife's like, hey, I need to take him to the baseball game. I've been on my own for the last 3 or 4 days. I need you to step in. And it's like, shit, man, that's fair. Probably you want to do it. Fine. But we're in the era of technology. Can you get on YouTube and listen to Yoga Nidra for half an hour instead of playing Candy Crush on your phone and like give your brain a reset? Hell yeah, you can. And I'm telling you right now, if that's your habit over the course of 2 years, you'll be way healthier than if you get home and just knock back, espresso blend and play Candy Crush until it's time to take kids to baseball.
So if I'm not mistaken, the book provides a lot of tools that people can use to create some of these positive habits, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'll just leave you hanging in the book, right? Because a lot of this, sometimes whether it's firefighters or not, the barrier to entry is like, where do I start? The problem that we used to have was no information. We just didn't even know what there was or how we should monitor. Now the pendulum has swung almost the other direction where it's like, I don't even know where to start. I'm overwhelmed. And so the book categorizes things into basically, I call them like 3 buckets of mind, movement, and matter. So what's your relationship with stress? How's it affecting your mind and body? How well can you move? And then what's going on with your chemistry? And all 3 of those categories, I talk about monitoring systems. So how do you learn to pay attention to that stuff? That can be done with technology or not. Whether you have access to it or you just don't like it, I don't really care, right? I talk about both. And then we talk about tools. How do you build a toolkit? And I give examples from each category of how to build a toolkit. What I don't do is just throw protocols because I don't know any individual situation. What I give is experiments. So I say, okay, I wanna sleep better. And I said, great. Here's a couple things we're gonna measure while we try to improve your sleep. You can use a piece of technology like an Oura Ring, for example, right, which we talked about before we came on. You use a piece of tech, or you can just have like a 5-question survey about how you feel when you wake up. And what we're gonna do is have a consistent bedtime anytime you're home, or I'm going to do the same sleep routine this many days in a row. And as a result, I'm going to look at how it trends over the course of a given number of days. Now, if you're in the fire service and you're doing, what did you say, 72 on, 96 off?
48 on, 96 off.
48 on, 96 off. So you're doing 48 on, 96 off. So you might have to do that for 3 weeks instead of 10 days so that you can have some sense of normal changes through a schedule. But what you don't want to do is Rob tells you a sleep protocol that's supposed to be magic. Instead, it's how do I look at the thing I want to improve, pick a tool, measure how it works, ask a new question, right? But yeah, the book absolutely has lots of suggestions. I talk about those things in detail. And, you know, one of the things I'm proud of with the book is I wrote it so that it doesn't have to be read cover to cover. So you can read it to cover and it will read like that. But I also wrote it with people in tactical communities in mind, and knowing, one, time is of the essence, and two, most everybody got ADHD. And so being able to go to, what do I care about right away, was really important to me. I didn't want barriers to entry. So you could literally go in my book and go, I care about sleep. And you can go to the sleep section and read the sleep section in isolation, and then go right to the sleep experiments and do it right away. And then decide later, do I want to read all this other stuff? And I did that on purpose. I wanted to have maximum utility for the reader.
One thing I liked the most about it, at least where I'm at in the book, was you talked about, and I forget what you called it, but it's like the access to things, right? Like in my basement, I have a Peloton and dumbbells, but I also have a gym membership, and there's also a jiu-jitsu gym down the street, but they're not as easily accessible. So you talked about, like, when you develop habits, you know, have things staged to where you have quick access to this, and then, you know, and you have a workbook in the book, and you're like, put into categories like when you what's the thing you're trying to key performance indicator for, and then list these things out. Like, can you just describe that a little bit, how you can work along that with the book?
Yeah. So a couple things, right? So the first thing is like, there's a pairing of this idea of like proximal and distal tools, right? So what's close? What do you have the most access to? And what do you have least access to? And that's just like, you know, with every firefighter's kit, you have things that are right on your person and you have things that are on your truck. It doesn't mean the things that are on your person work worse than things that are on your truck, but you don't rely on them as much because it's an extra step to get to them, right? So what are the tools I know I'm going to have access to? Like for you, you just said Peloton and dumbbells. Boy, you get a lot of really good shit done with a Peloton and a couple of dumbbells, right? You could be really fit with just those things, no question, right? So there's that idea. And then there's systems over discipline, right? I think when a lot of times, and this is sort of in the zeitgeist right now of our culture, which is like, you got to be disciplined. And when I was on with Jocko, we kind of, you know, we joked around about this because he's like one of his proponents of discipline, and I believe in it, but discipline requires energy. What doesn't is systems. And again, I'll use the fire service. How many redundant systems do you guys have? All these SOPs that you have in place are there so that they're drilled into your head. So it doesn't matter how tired you are. It doesn't matter what else is going on. They're less vulnerable to task saturation. I know I need step 1, 2, 3, 4. I can break one rule, but I can't break 3 rules. Okay, as long as I always got 2 of these rules in play, everybody's safe, right? And so they're all kind of systems and redundancies that protect you from failing. It's the same if you create a system of exercise. So for me, like one thing I do personally is I have a kettlebell that's in my kitchen. My wife loves it. She really does it, right? But it's right there. So if I don't get to the gym or I'm going to be busy, boy, that thing's staring at me. It's right there. I just pick it up and swing it. Right? So maybe you just have a kettlebell that sits in your living room and that's your tool. You're like, I don't want 50 things. Can I just get one, whatever, 50-pound kettlebell? It's like, oh man, you got a 45 or 50-pound kettlebell. You could swing it. You could do squats with it. You could press it over your head. You could do cleans with it. You could do a ton with very, very little equipment, but you want to put it in a place in the environment that tells you to use it when you see it. So that's building a system. In the book, all through the book, I have self-reflection questions and ways to interact with the material so that it's not just like, I just tell you the idea and then it's all done. It's like, okay, here's the idea. What's in your environment? How can you use it? What place will it occupy? Will this be a proximal tool or will this be a distal tool? So I take you through the process of doing it so that you actually do it, right? Because I don't really care if you just read the book and then you don't change. I mean, it's nice that you read my book, but what's the effect? And what I cared about when I wrote it was the effect. I didn't want to write a book that was just more noise in the world so that I could say Rob Wilson is an author. Like, who gives a shit? There's enough of that. I wanted to write something that created an opportunity for meaningful change for people in general, but the communities that I care about helping the most are service communities, because you guys get overlooked and you don't complain because everybody's so service oriented, right? So everything that is course correcting for you happens retroactively, right? It's like, oh, well, boy, the number 1 cause of firefighter death used to be cardiovascular disease. It's suicide. Maybe we should look at how these guys are feeling. It's like, there were no clues for this 10 years ago. There were. Everybody's getting burnt out. Divorce rate was higher, right? Those are like burnout, people leaving the service early, divorce frequency. Those are all indicators. That's another systemic case, right? So for me, and I come from a first responder family, my parents are retired police officers, you see the toll that it takes. So for me, one, as just a member of the general public, selfishly, I want first responders to be on their game because I might have to call. And I want people to show up for me and my family and my community who are ready to meet the demands of that call. But I also want you to be able to participate fully with your own family and your community and have something left over when your time to serve is done, and not just be like, turn your papers in and a year later die. To me, that's a shit trade. And it's not as difficult to course correct. I think we try to look at these like grandiose administrative changes that need to happen sometimes. And sometimes it's just as simple as like creating a system in your house that helps you exercise more frequently. Right? It's like, I'm going to do sun salutation every day at this time, unless you're on duty on a call. Otherwise, no matter what, 7 a.m., 0700, you owe sun salutation and 50 kettlebell swings. And the next thing you know, 50 kettlebell swings turns into 50 kettlebell swings and 50 squats. Because if you do 50 kettlebell swings, you realize even if you take breaks, that only takes 2 minutes. And now you're like, man, I got a little sweat. Well, I'm already working out. Let me do some curls. Well, I'm already working out. I don't want to do anything intense. I'm fucking tired. I'll just go walk on the treadmill. Hey man, you want to come walk on the treadmill? You just shoot the shit and you talk smack about whatever weird shit the president said or the football game. because you're going to talk shit anyway. Might as well do it on a treadmill. And next thing you know, well, that's just half hour. And then go on your business, do whatever you were going to do, play darts, do gear check, call your wife, whatever. That doesn't seem like that much, but doing that 4 days a week for 10 years, that does a lot. So you don't have to be like some superstar, crazy stud person, but a little every day goes a long, long way. So yeah, the book just gives you a starting place that reduces barrier to entry for those things.
You know what I like about the part you talked about just getting on the treadmill and asking someone else to get on the treadmill and just shooting the shit instead of sitting around the kitchen table. You guys are on the treadmill getting some steps in, but also how that progresses, right? The kettlebell turns into squats, and it goes from there. In the firehouse, there's this awesome phenomenon. If I'm sitting in my room writing reports or reading a book or something, and I hear the weights clink clink, or I hear someone in there moving the sled around, and I'm like, all right, let me get my shoes on. Let me get in there, because I can't let the boys be working out without me, right? It's this cool thing where when you take action and you start getting in there and exercising just for your own benefit, it's going to attract like-minded individuals to come do the same thing. So not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping other people at the same time.
Yeah, and I've had a few times I have this question or this kind of topic come up a good bit about like, how do I get my coworkers to do it? Or sometimes it'll come out like, how do I get my spouse to do it? And people like want to turn it into a mandate. And I try to say like turn it into an invitation. So it's basically like if you're like the fitness person in the firehouse, you're like the person who everybody talks to about working out and shit. Just have an open invitation. Somebody comes in while you're pushing the sled. You'd be like, you finish your run. You're like, all right, man, you're up. Let's go. Like, you're on. Oh shit. It's like, oh, come on, let's do it. Somebody else comes in. What are y'all doing? Oh, he's doing it. Yeah, man, you got the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Now we're doing this. It's like, there's an open invitation. And sometimes we go, oh, well, I tried this and blah, blah, blah. And they make excuses. I'm like, well, then you're just not making a good enough case. You're not making a good enough case. You're not being a good enough example. Like, do people really feel welcome? Like if you're training, do you got podcaster headphones on and sunglasses and you're being super cool and you don't want anyone to talk to you? Or do you really care about your teammates? And you're going to be like, come on, let's go. Let's go. You're in. You're set. You're doing this one. Come on, let's go. I'm done with this kettlebell. Now you're going to do that like invitation. And I think that's how that community sort of virus can spread, is through invitation. And then what happens, right? You got the whole firehouse going, and then people start to hold each other accountable. And, people like to be competitive, especially guys. Oh, let's put a leaderboard up. This is 1,000 kettlebell swing challenge or 10,000 swing challenge this month. We're going to throw in a pot or whatever, we're going to throw a party, whatever the thing is. You just turn it into something that's fun instead of, and then the department can mandate an overall standard that says you can do the job, but you won't even be worried about it. If you're doing 10,000 kettlebell swings a month and walking on the treadmill and pushing a sled all a few days a week, you're not even worried about their standard. Right. It's not what's driving you, because you're like, I'm committed to my team. I'm in here worried about what my teammates are doing. Oh, I know I can pull hose up the steps, and I ain't worried about that. I'm doing 10,000 swings.
I love it, man. It's teamwork, it's brotherhood, but it's also, setting your own standard just by doing the thing. The pressure of, or the fear of failure, or the pressure of not meeting a standard is secondary to just doing hard stuff with your homies, right? That's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. We all like to do that. I mean, that's a human thing, is to go through a communal challenge together and then come out the other side. It's hard to find a better way to bond, is that we all did something difficult together and now it's over. Right. I mean, that's why the bonds in things like the fire service are so strong, because you all go do something that's extremely dangerous and you have to count on each other. You have to go, the person to my left and right and behind me and in front of me, I have to count on them with my life. And you do it over and over and over again. And then their commitment to you becomes unquestionable over time. Right. And so you can do the same thing with driving health forward. Right. But I think making it invitational rather than mandating is a much more effective.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've actually incorporated a lot of times at my crew just to get guys to work out, because nobody wants to. Sometimes the competitiveness needs to come after the fact, right? There's a guy that's, coming doing couch to working out with the guys, right? Doesn't want to look like he's falling behind. So like, let's just do a 20-minute EMOM, everybody, and do 5 stations. We got a 5-man crew. Let's just do 5 stations. This station's push-ups, this station's jumping jacks, this station's planks, whatever. And that way, when you're working out, no one else is looking at you. Everyone else is doing something. And it's super easy. So if you're doing push-ups and you're laying on the ground trying to catch your breath, that's cool. No one's watching you. No one's counting your reps. But so it makes it a little more comfortable for guys to go out there and want to be a part of the crew and want to be a part of the workout, because there's the competition could come later, but it's one good way to get guys out there.
Well, and here's the thing. It's like, why shit on somebody who's putting in effort, even if they're not doing as well, right? It's like, at least the dude's not on the couch anymore. Like, I'm way more worried about the fact that he was sitting on the couch doing nothing than that he's having a hard time doing push. He's out here trying to make himself better, because I got to count on this dude at some point. So that you want to encourage, because then if you encourage, now you have one more member of the team who's capable, right? So to me, that's a perspective issue. So if the group is encouraging and inviting, then it's good for not just that person, but it elevates the whole group, because now there's another person who can not only pull their weight, but at some point you're going to be low, whether it's on the job or not. They're going to be more capable to help you pick up that slack, right? Nobody on the team it's not like everyone on the team is 100% at all times. It's like some guys are at 40, some guys are at 80, some guys are at 70. It's moving all the time. You don't know when your day to be the guy who's saving and the guy who's going to be saved. Nobody knows whether that's real, like in a real situation on a call, but just in life, you might be low, man. You might, at some point, that dude you encouraged in a year might be like, yo, oh man, it's all good. You slipped. Remember when I slipped and you guys pulled me? Come on, let's go. Let's go do some push-ups. You just don't know how that's going to affect the team over time. So yeah, I think that's a great strategy.
Man, that's powerful. It's a powerful statement too, because I tell you, I got a 2-year-old that dictates the tempo in my house, right? So if she doesn't want, if she's not sleeping the night before, she's not sleeping, and I still got to go to work and perform. And if I'm smoked out of the gate and the guys are giving me a hard time, I'm going to feel like crap. But if I'm like, dude, I'll give you all I can, but I'm not at 100, and they're like, we got you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, there's some like happy banter, right? You know, you're gonna get some shit like, well, you slow today. What's up?
Yeah.
What, right? What's up, Lions? You slow today, but it's in good fun, right? What you don't want to do is like this guy who's just off the couch, who's trying to make himself better, be like, man, this guy's slowing shit down. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh man, we need this dude to be fit. Like we need to lift him up, him or her, or whatever, right? We need to lift this person up, because I don't know about you, but I could always use one more capable, helpful person in my life.
Yeah.
Regardless. So let's bring them up. Bring them up.
I love it, man. It's good, positive mindset. I think we need more of that in the fire service and the first responder community for sure. I want to ask you one more topic that I don't think we hit very thoroughly, was like decompression. With the 4896, I got a few days. Obviously, I'll probably need a day to just recover from running calls and being at work. But I mean, what do you do for decompression, and then what does that conversation look like for other guys? How important is it?
So if we're talking about me and what I do, what I have learned over time is that I can handle a pretty crazy amount of physical labor and be okay. But when cognitive or emotional load gets high and I let it go too long, that's the stuff that buries me. So if you had a dump truck full of river rocks and you dumped them in my driveway and you gave me a shovel and you're like, you need to haul those down the street all day long, and it just was like that every day, I could basically do that ad infinitum until I just died. But if you really want to see me take a shit and not decompress, is relationship stress, cognitive workload, cognitive responsibility. Those are the things that get me. And I need time to decompress by doing things like not having additional inputs when I don't need them. So like doom scroll type shit. I try to get away from that. I go for a walk with no phone and just my family. Just outside, just walking and talking. Sometimes by myself, I just walk my dog and just I've come to call this like build the spider web. So we're all like the shit that's flying around in there. I just give my brain some time to organize it. And you find that you're like getting into like you're talking to yourself and then you start to hear what you're saying about things. You're like laugh at yourself a little bit, but that building the spider web time is often not there, especially for people in high paced workloads like first responders or people in the military, because it's like already this stuff's going on. It's like no time for the system to come to some sort of resting state and build this spider web inside. And that's especially true if you're sleep disrupted constantly, because that's when that will happen. Usually that spider web gets built while you're asleep, right? So going for walks and having purposeful time where there's not additional input, I found very helpful. But then also writing is a way that I have found to decompress. So, and I'm not saying like you need to have like a cathartic diary like a 12-year-old girl, like, dear diary, Timmy is handsome but doesn't notice me, right? It could be that if you want, but just like writing shit down that you're thinking about, freehand, no rules. And sometimes you see that stuff later and you go, man, I don't even think that, right? But it's just it helps organize what's going on upstairs in a way that few other things do. And I found with people in tactical communities, sometimes you're trying to solve a real problem or reconcile with a situation that's actually quite serious, right? Like for guys in the SEAL teams, it might be like, hey, they're trying to solve some tactical issue that's mission direct. And for first responder communities, it might be like, you saw a dead kid today, right? That's nothing I've had to experience. I can't imagine that that's easy to deal with, and that you have to put that shit somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. It doesn't just fucking evaporate, right? So, and again, it doesn't mean it needs to be cathartic, like, oh, I saw blah, blah, blah. But sometimes it's just like not storing all of the shit inside in here. It's just, I have somewhere else that I can put this. And then I think other hobbies, right? This is something we talked about earlier. Like I like to be outside. I surf, I like to be active. Physical movement is important for me personally. I think it's really good for other people. I like to do jujitsu, right? Getting outside is really healthy. Making sure you have family, like healthy support systems in family, I think is really important. Not just like now I have an additional obligation, but also like I can just be at peace. There's a group of people who are not necessarily from work where I can just be at peace with them. I think all of those are reasonable examples of decompression. I mean, there's some things that are like scientific that we can talk about too. There's breath control stuff, right? There's doing breathing techniques, sitting quietly, doing slow breathing in the morning or in the evening before bed. I tend to recommend it before bed for a lot of first responders and military.
Yeah, I think decompression for the most part is, basically up to the individual, right? Like you said, like you can go scientific with it. You could pour into your family, which is a great decompression for me, or you can do activities that are fun for you, like hobbies that just take your mind off of things. I've been trying to write more, but I find more and more that I'm stuck to that stupid rectangular device called a phone, almost to the point, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, where like I can't go to the bathroom without my phone. Right. So learning to detach, I got this thing like called a brick that sticks to my fridge, and you can scan it and it takes away all the apps that you don't want access to. So trying to tackle that, and I've been trying to write a little bit more basic stuff for me when I write is like name 3 things that you were successful at today, right? Just have a positive mindset. Like what went well today? Because it's so easy for a lot of us to go down this negative mindset. Like today was an ass kicker, dude. Like this call, this person, that, my crew member, this check engine light, this, right? All this stuff. We can dwell on all this negative stuff, but then it was just like, get down on a piece of paper, like what went well? What was great? Like, and I think that has been very beneficial for my mindset and just kind of letting go of some of the daily stressors.
Yeah, I think gratitude, I did had a gratitude practice for a while where I would write down 3 things that I was thankful for and just orient my focus around. It's really hard to be mad and be grateful at the same time. It's very difficult. And it doesn't mean don't acknowledge things that need to be changed, that could be done better, right? Like you need to know if a call went wrong and if somebody on the call didn't do their job, and you need to be able to call that person out on that. But it's like, at the same time, how much of your day do you want to let that ruin? Right. So, I think writing is great. One of the issues that people have with starting writing is, one, they're glued to their phone. So I would say turn it off. Like you could use something like a brick, or you could just shut it off. Like there's no rule. Like if you're off the clock at work, you're home, your family's around, turn that shit off and put it in a drawer somewhere for a given period of time. And that's what I did when I was writing the book. I just would shut it off and put it in another room. And there's a great book about how to do this. It's called Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Okay.
And it's like how to segregate your focus. Like, okay, between these hours or this half hour, here are the rules. And I'm going to read. I started reading more this year. I was like, man, I don't really read real books enough. I read a lot of research papers and I read a bunch of shit on the internet. I was like, I need to read books. And so now in the morning, my minimum is 15 minutes. Because I'm like, I always have 15 minutes. If I don't have 15 minutes, it means I did some bullshit. Right. So I have 15 minutes and I read a physical book and I alternate between fiction and nonfiction. I just finished reading The Shining by Stephen King.
Wow,
amazing.
Nice. Throwback.
But I've read a bunch of classics this year: Lord of the Flies, Slaughterhouse Five. I was just like stuff I should have read in middle school and high school that I didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
But it's just like,
I like to go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, dude, I was gonna say I love the Jack Carr books. If you haven't read those, like the Terminal List books,
I have. Yeah.
big shout out to Jack Carr on those, man, because those are phenomenal
awesome
books, man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that's like reading an action movie.
Yeah.
They're great. But all that stuff is like just putting your brain in another mode, right? The brain's, it's never off, but it's just like, man, take it out of fifth gear, like let it run in some other gears, let it drop into neutral and just idle that thing. Like, when I work with these guys that are in the SEAL teams, sometimes they're like, oh man, I can't get to sleep. My head's spinning. I'm like, why don't you just take your fucking dog for a walk and like, block all calls except wife and command, put the phone in your back pocket and let your dog run the walk. Like, don't turn it into a working dog. Just let your dog sniff and just let the dog lead you for 10 to 30 minutes. And guys would be like, what the hell? I'm like, yeah, man, that's called relaxing. Your dog already knows how to do it. Now it's just showing you.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, it doesn't have to, like, you already got to walk this dog anyway. So let's just turn this dog walk into your walk. You just, hey, I'm just going to go. And like, before you know it, you're not looking at your phone or trying to worry when it's over. You're like, oh shit, man, that's a cool tree. Like, man, check that bird out. I didn't know there was that nest there. Oh man, it's the time of year the bats are starting to come out. Like, oh, I can smell my neighbor has a fire. Like, for real. Like, you start broadening out and just relaxing. And all those things have, both for me and for people that I work with, have served as great tools for decompression.
Yeah, I think I need to start implementing that because I have a dog, and I know you're a dog lover too. But I can't it's another one of those things where I go out with my headphones and I'm listening to a podcast at 2x times the speed and walking my dog and just never shutting it off. But I think one thing, when you kept saying it, it comes at a cost. I kept hearing that in my head when you kept, every time you said it, comes at a cost, comes at a cost. I don't decompress. I don't detach. Jocko word right there. And then I come home and my wife's coming home from work. She's stressed out. Baby's hungry, screaming. And then I just blow up, right? Because I don't decompress. I don't detach. That's why I wanted to ask you, like, what are you doing? You know,
yeah. And I mean, that's a learning curve for me. It's not like I was born into the world and then like Rob just got shit right, you know, and I get plenty wrong and I still get it wrong. And I rely on people that love me and care about me to help me course correct in good faith, you know, and say like, hey, like you're slipping, like you're being kind of mean, or you're being kind of short tempered. I'm like, oh shit. And it, you know, sometimes like, because we're in such a like self-improvement culture, it's like, I got to read another thing. Oh, are you listening to this podcast? Are you listening to this? And it's like, when do we really digest? That'd be like eating constantly, but not digesting your food. Right. And so it's like, where's the time for digestion? And what I have found is that I haven't needed as much input if the quality of the input that I am getting is high. So I'm a lot more careful about what I give my attention to because it's so valuable. Like attention is such a valuable resource. It took me a long time to really get that as right as I have it right now, which is still not perfect. Is like, what am I paying attention to? And to realize how much energy that sucks out of us. Like what, you know, I came across this quote recently, which is from Simone Weil, who's a really brilliant philosopher. She's like, attention is a form of prayer. And so it's like, whatever I attend to, I'm praying to. It's like, man, when I started thinking about it like that, it made what I attend to, I'm like, I'm making that thing into something sacred. So it's like, ooh, who gets my sacred attention and what? It's like, oh, well then a lot of this shit can just go away. It's just bullshit. That's it. I had to come to terms with all that. Well, I like to just watch little Amazon Prime. You know, I want to watch Terminal List before I'm eating breakfast. And I just realized it was just like, there's nothing wrong with that show. It's a fucking cool show, but it was just noise. I was just like, there's always like some noise, some input. I'm watching something, I'm listening to something. There's just always input. And then I stopped doing that. And I was like, I can just wash the dishes in silence. You know, I could just go walk with no sound. I could drive my truck without having to find a song to play during my trip to 7-Eleven. And it was like, oh, okay. And at first it was uncomfortable, but the more I have done it, then when I do devote my attention to something, it actually has some like nutritive value. Not that I never just want to like rock out to AC/DC on the way to the grocery store, but I'm just saying it's not the default anymore. And I can feel the difference.
I tell you, I'm smiling because I feel like you're talking directly to me like, with all this stuff, man. There's been a few times during this conversation where I just start smiling. I'm like, man, he's talking right at me. This is hard. How do I have my face?
I'm telling on myself a lot. So, you know, a lot of this is just hard earned experience. It's not all
I love
just
it, man.
Like performance literature.
I respect that you're saying that though too, because there's people that try to claim that they're gurus and they're perfect and they got everything dialed, and you're telling everybody like, no, man, I've messed up enough to figure this out that way.
That's suspect as hell.
Right.
I don't trust those folks at all. And you know what? People who seem like that, I have often worked with and know, and have seen how full of shit they are behind the curtain. And so it's like, okay, friend, like, and I've never blow anybody up, but I'm just like, nah, I'm just, yeah. And here's the thing, it's just being a person. Who cares? It's just learn your lesson and move forward and try to help other people benefit. And that's the whole point. It's like, I'm not here to like give you my, you know, my cathartic biography, but I think it's important for somebody who is an expert like me to be honest and say like, oh no, I fucked this up. Like, this has created problems for me. I've had high blood pressure because I stressed myself out, and I teach this for a living, and I still missed it, and it's okay. And the point is, oh, I learned something, and then I don't do that stuff. And there's going to be another lesson. But the point is to fail smaller and to fail faster, not to be perfect. We don't work like that. But it's like, oh, if I can make the margin of error tight, then it'll look perfect, you know?
Yeah.
So
No, I love it, man. And there's that goes a lot to your credibility and why you get to work with the people that you do. There was a line that you said, and we're wrapping things up, but there was a line that you said, credibility is gained in drops and lost in buckets.
yes.
Like when you said that, man, I was like, oh, dude, that's deep. I love it.
Yeah, it's true. And it's true everywhere, but it's the most true in communities that can lose big if they listen to the wrong person. So I think it's really important if you're listening to this and you work with first responder communities to be really careful about your credibility and to be honest about where you're coming from, and to use things that are scientifically sound, but also don't bullshit people about like you just get it right and you've always had the perfect sleep routine, because it's bullshit, because nobody has it like that.
Right. Beautiful, man. Well, I think that's a great way to end the podcast there, at least the conversation point. But if people want to buy the book, where can they find the book? I know you got a lot of resources out there. Where can they find the book, or at least get a hold of you?
Yeah. So if you're interested in the book, then you can find it at thecheckenginelightbook.com. Real easy, right? It's on Amazon. Comes, you order it up, comes in a day. Yay, Amazon. Then if you want free stuff, you can go to my Substack, right, which is called Check Engine Light, where I release an article every week about these topics. And I also have started an audio article every week. So I read and comment on the prior week's article that gets released once a week, usually every Tuesday or Wednesday. And then I have Instagram, right? So you can find me on social at the Check Engine Light.
Is it the Check Engine Light or Check Engine Light?
It's at the Check Engine Light.
Nice.
Yeah.
The semantics are incredibly like important.
I tried to get at Check
Instagram.
Engine Light, but like some dude with like a shitty car Instagram from like 2008 has it with 6 posts. And it's like,
yeah, 6 posts, 2
like,
followers.
And I'm like, all right, oh well.
Man, I appreciate you coming on, and I know some people found some value out of it, and I hope my hope was to talk enough about the book, but not go super in depth like Jocko would. Just talk about the entire book to drive people to go get the book, because I got it myself and find a lot of value out of it. The first part of it the first third of it may throw off some people because it's a little heady. You talk a little bit about like the brain and other things like that. But after you overcome a lot of that and it starts getting into the tools, it's awesome for sure. So some of the firefighters might struggle. They might need a dictionary.
Yeah, well, you know what? You don't get better by reaching down.
Ooh, nice.
But it's not written for professional human performance people. It's written for lay people, but there is some requirement too,
right,
to understand, how markers work. Otherwise you won't understand how markers work.
Right. No, necessary terminology that you have to understand.
Yeah, it's necessary vocabulary, but it's not jargon.
Right. No, I love it, man. Well, I appreciate it. And for anybody that's listening, if you found value in it, please share it with like-minded individuals and get the word out, and go and get the book. Reach out to Rob on all the platforms. And I'm actually going to sign up for that article and get some,
please do.
Info, man.
And I just want to say really quick before we stop is, if you're a first responder and you're listening to this and you need help getting organized around these ideas and you're not sure where to start, send me a message on Instagram and I'll make sure that you get at least sent in the right direction. Okay. I have even if it's not me, I have a lot of people that I trust. So if you're not sure where to go to get the kind of help you need, reach out to me and I'll make sure that you get it.
Man, that's beautiful. Man, I love that. Valuable asset right there. All right, everybody. We will catch you on the next episode of the Overhaul podcast. Thanks for listening. See ya.